Give me a little bit of info about Augsburg.
Yeah, Augsburg University. We're here in lovely Minneapolis, Minnesota. We have about 35-ish hundred students. About half of those are your traditional age college students, with like 1,000 of them typically living in the dorms and stuff, and the other half are adult students. And I think employee-wise, you probably have 500 to 600 employees.
What is the COVID situation? How remote is it?
Yeah, we've been doing the last fall and then spring that we're in currently right now, we're probably doing roughly 10% classes face to face. The rest is all Zoom and remote.
What was happening? When was this, when you were beginning to consider a solution, and what problems did you keep encountering that finally made you start looking?
Yeah, this was pre-COVID, so I think it was 2019. I think it was a compliance driver. So in HR, there was a new Minnesota law that was like a wage theft law that every employee had to essentially sign a letter acknowledging their salary as part of this new law, and we had to make sure we could be compliant with that. And doing that all with wet signatures would have just been a nightmare for HR. And so we needed a way to do this digitally, and do it kind of fast because the law kind of went into effect kind of quickly, and there wasn't a lot of time for businesses to get in compliance. So we had to move a lot faster. And so, I know we looked at several different options, and we really liked signNow's, pricing structure worked well for us. The features were all there that we needed. And it was, quite easy to use, good user interface. And so we had basically set up HR to, use it for this compliance need. And so HR started using it for that, and then doing it for some of their other HR forms, when there's, salary position changes, different things that require approvals and like that. So that was back in 2019. And so we were pretty much just using it in HR. And then COVID hit, and everybody went remote in March of 2020. And then people started emailing me because their wet signature PDF solutions obviously were not working. And like, what can we do? And so, well, since we happen to already be using signNow, I said, well, we're using something in HR. Let's expand that to more departments and more users across campus.
What were some of the other departments that it was expanded to, and do you have, what kind of things did they use it for?
Yeah, we definitely have a handful going. So we, that first COVID summer, we typically run a summer institute for K-12 teachers to help them stay current, and get their continuing education credits. And those are all workshops. Well, we took those all online, but they still had forms for the workshop leaders to sign, the people who were going to run the workshops. So we worked with our continuing education folks there in the education department, essentially, get them set up a signNow so that they can get all of those workshop leaders their paperwork done. I was approached by our grants office because they have some various forms like conflicts of interest forms and some other grant forms they needed to get signed. A lot of that was for federal compliance for some of the grants, and so they needed a way to have a signature digitally. And another one that we got going in the summer really was one of our most critical uses was with our student counseling center, because of course the student counseling center went all online with telehealth and Zoom and everything, but their forms were all paper, PDF, wet signature. It's an intake form, it's a demographic form, it's an information release form, and they really needed a way for the students to get those done quickly so they could get the students in to be seen with a counselor, because during COVID, it's been such a critical time for mental health for students. They've really been struggling, and they've been leveraging the counseling center immensely. And so that that was really important for them to get all that process stuff digital, because they could just get students in as fast as possible, as fast as they had time, honestly, to fill up all their slots and everything.
What were some of the features that you were looking for when you were shopping that you haven't mentioned? Like, what were some of your must-have features?
I mean, really, it's easy for end users to create the fields on like the PDF they upload. The signature field, the date field, essentially, and then other fields as well. It has to be really easy for them to do, because as we've really spread it out to all these different areas, they're obviously not coders, and so just having a good user interface where it's drag and drop and easy for them to do that. That was really a big one. And the other feature that's helpful is the kind of team folder structure, where like in HR, since there's multiple people using it, for them to have an HR team and to have an HR team folder where they can have some of those documents or even the templates, using the team templates, so they can have, there's one form that's standard that, multiple HR people might be sending out to different folks. And so to have that team template that they can access and use and send out the standard form, is really important. So that just saves time, especially when you've got a team.
Is there something that you go to in signNow the most?
Honestly, I think the big part of it is just the ease of getting a document in there, getting a signature and date field on it is so fast. Just when I'm training people and I show them how they can do it, it's like a minute, to get the essential setup, like especially if they just need to do a one-off. And then it takes a little bit longer to create the template, which will save them time later. But just the speed at which they can just get a signature on something they need at the moment is just great. It's very fast.
Great. What about implementing it? Were there any challenges and successes getting signNow fully integrated across the team?
I think the only challenge was us figuring out organizationally how we wanted to do the team structure, because we started out just in HR and we were looking at it, well, it's just HR, and then we needed to, as we wanted to expand it, then we had to figure out, how we were going to kind of structure the account so that we could, not have it be an HR account, but have HR be a team in the university account. And then a lot of that was just us figuring out, okay, who's going to be kind of primary on the account, and then and everyone else is essentially users in there that get put into teams and stuff. And so it's I think it's more figuring out kind of who's primary, and then who are all the users and groups, and then being able to kind of run with that as we've been able to add more departments and people on.
Okay. How long would you say it took to implement it? And then how long were you using it before other teams were fully implemented?
That's a good question, because HR really implemented it initially themselves, actually quite independent of me, because since it really started with an HR compliance thing, they worked directly with support. And from what I recall, it was not difficult for them to, really get going with, the wage theft law compliance form. And I think, the only challenge for them was, that would be a mail merge thing where they would have a spreadsheet where they'd essentially kind of do a mail merge. So everybody got their own, with their own name and all that, kind of their own data on it. So I think that probably took them the longest, just because it was a new system for them, and to figure out the ins and outs of how best to do that.
Great. Okay. Good to know. So we can move into some of the results now. How is your team's experience different or better than it used to be? How do you feel empowered? how does this make your day a little bit easier?
I think it really empowers all the folks that we've got into it because, honestly, they're super independent. Once I get trained them on it, they're really good to go. And they can just, send away for signatures. And I would say they've almost never really come back and asked me questions. They might have asked support or gone into the nice extensive knowledge base to look stuff up, which when I train them, I always point that out. Like, there's all this help right here that goes through everything that you need to know. And so I think a lot of people also do that as well. And so they're really independent, and really it's, more what I've done is maybe I've circled back to someone and maybe shared a tip with them that I've learned, as I've used it a little more, or I've trained more people and kind of discover things that we didn't realize that we could do. And so then I'll share a tip to hopefully make it a little easier for them.
What would you say is your estimate for the total number of people who touch signNow? How many people administer it or administrate it? And then if you
Sure.
have an estimate of how many people eventually use it on, as a user, that would be great too.
Yeah, we have, we have 17, admin users right now, in several different teams across the university. So yeah, and they all represent those examples I gave before, those different areas.
Great. What about just, things like paper saved, time saved? How many human hours do you save by using this rather than putting something in the mail?
Yeah, I think it's difficult to quantify, but I think it's definitely quite a lot of time, especially in terms of the back and forth. I think there's a comfort level and an ability to just get it done because it is really quick to do, and there isn't all that overhead.
Has COVID changed your mind on anything regarding digitization? Is this the kind of thing that, I know you started this before COVID, but what are your plans for this in the future, even after COVID?
With so many things that we've learned in the past year with the pandemic and changing how we live, there's a lot of things that we're not going to want to go back doing the old way. We're not going to want to go signing paper stuff anymore because it just takes too much time. And what's the point when we can do it electronically? And so, I think this is, one of many things that, is going to stay and grow, and, our lives will be better because of it. We'll have more time to do more meaningful things, and offices can spend more time interacting directly with students and helping them.
Less time printing and faxing and mailing. Yeah, totally. Are there any specific stories or anecdotes about using signNow that you thought were interesting?
I think the big story is just kind of how fast we were able to pivot, since we already had the product and we just needed to grow with it. And it's been so easy for people to use it once we show them how to use it, and they can just run with it.
Yeah.
I just think it's allowed us to quickly adjust over this past year, and keep things moving along.